All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Kate Adam. I'm from Juniper Networks, and I'm so excited to be here to talk about healthcare and security. Um, this actually affected me, healthcare and security affected me more this week than it has in previous weeks. I, like most of you, I've got small kids, and we actually had our own trip to our local hospital this past weekend. My kids have croup, and I don't know if you know what croup is, but it is, I swear, the most not talked about childhood illness, and it's terrifying. So, like any vigilant, overprotective parents, when my when my kids woke up not able to breathe very well, we called 911. We went to the hospital. We saw doctors. Of course, the doctor said, it's fine. They're fine. You're good to go. They've got oxygen. But thank goodness that we have the healthcare infrastructure in place to be able to do that. We have a local hospital. We're able to, make that hospital experience actually quite enjoyable, if I'm being honest, for my 3-year-old, who absolutely loved all of the doctor's attention, who loved all of the gadgets that had to go on his, the pulse oximeter on his finger, the stethoscopes, the machines calculating his oxygen levels and his heart rate and his blood pressure. He loved it, and thank goodness that we live in an age where most everything these days is smart, especially at a hospital, because it allows our healthcare system to be more efficient, to catch the smaller things that 10, 20, 30 years ago, healthcare professionals would miss because they didn't have the data on hand right away. They weren't able to share that data with each other, to get consulting opinions, to share it between hospitals, to share it with other doctors and nurses within the hospital, to make patient care excellent. And the past 18 months have been especially difficult for everyone in healthcare, for all of you, doctors, nurses, but especially IT. The pandemic caused a huge shift, almost overnight, in the way that hospital networks had to operate. I know, a lot of you had to quickly figure out how to accommodate for extra capacity within the hospital, to accommodate for outdoor operations, to accommodate for COVID test sites, COVID treatment sites, again, almost overnight. So that, by necessity, you had to stand up completely new networks. You had to extend your networks, and you also had to extend security, because patient data is that's why we have HIPAA. Patient data is extremely important, and it's important that it stays private and confidential, that it is not involved in data breaches, that it doesn't get sent to whomever, wherever, but that when it's sent intentionally to the right person, and that only those correct people who should have access do have access. That includes the patient, but it can also include doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals at other facilities. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how to protect and secure that patient data on endpoints. And I know what you're thinking, potentially, Juniper doesn't have an endpoint agent. We don't. There are many amazing endpoint agents out there. And I mean, really take your pick. But what we're going to be talking about today is using the network to do this. So, I want to just take a minute to talk about why we should use the network. Endpoint agents are great. Again, they absolutely should and can be used wherever possible. They are great at understanding when an endpoint has been compromised. Most of them have data prevention, DLP included. So you understand, when data moves and when it's going someplace that it shouldn't be going. You can get an alert, you can stop it. But endpoint data or endpoint agents can't always be used. And so this is why it's important that the network, your network, is threat aware. And so protecting and securing patient data on endpoints really, if we simplify it, comes down to three things. The first thing is visibility. You need to know who and what is on your network at all times and how they impact your risk posture. Now, obviously, there's your traditional desktop and laptop computers. There are nurses' stations and roaming terminals. There are all of these smart machines in operating rooms, in offices. There are patients bringing in their laptops, their mobile phones. So there's a hospital, a healthcare facility has tons of different types of endpoints roaming around, moving around all the time. And knowing what those endpoints are, who is operating them, what applications they're accessing, what their level of access is, and if they're posing an inherent risk. For example, if they're using an operating system that's not patched, if they are able to escalate privileges that they shouldn't have, what a user on that endpoint is doing, what endpoints are talking to other endpoints. Knowing that context is that goes towards visibility, but it doesn't just stop there. You also need to understand and have visibility to your network infrastructure. And I'm talking about what Wi-Fi access points you've got around your facilities. What devices are connecting to those access points? Those access points, what do they have access to? Where are they connecting to? Where are your routers? Where are your switches? The entire network you need to have visibility into it. I know that it is not a trivial task to do. But this is why the second thing I want to talk about, intelligence, is important. Intelligence is not just about threat intelligence. Intelligence is also about telemetry. And threat intelligence, in my view, means a lot of different things. It includes different research about ongoing attacks that may affect you. Who is being attacked? So, within the healthcare industry, what attacks are taking place right now? What are those indicators of compromise that will help you recognize when that attack potentially is taking place on your network and what it's affecting? But it also includes intelligence about those devices that are connected. So again, this all goes towards, is a router behaving as it should be behaving? Is an endpoint acting in a way that indicates something's not right? Something is anomalous. And connecting those pieces of intelligence together so that you get full context. You get an entire picture, not just individual puzzle pieces, but that those puzzle pieces fit together. That will help you see, whether this is just an anomalous behavior, no big deal, or whether this anomalous behavior is part of a greater sequence of an attack that you need to care about now. Or maybe this is an attack that you're not as worried about, you'll get to it later because it's a lower priority, or it affects a device that absolutely cannot go offline at that moment, which is completely understandable. I don't know about you, but I definitely would not want any of the smart devices operating on me while I'm on the table going down because there might be a compromise, right? You have to be sure. And that context that you get from connecting those pieces of intelligence, again, outside threat intelligence, inside threat intelligence, and telemetry from the devices, all goes towards helping you make that decision of what to do next. And finally, enforcement. And enforcement absolutely should be on the endpoint itself. Endpoint agents, EDRs, are great for this. But it also means enforcing on the rest of the network. It also means using the rest of the network to help you block, to help you quarantine, to help you understand and make sure that if there is an attack, you can stop it where it needs to be stopped before it gets to a place where data is accessible, where data can be exfiltrated, where data can be deleted. All of these three things are the fundamental pieces of creating a threat-aware network. So let me get into some more detail on enforcement. So, you should absolutely use your endpoint agent. You absolutely should use your firewalls. And in my opinion, and in Juniper's opinion, firewalls are, the go-to place to do a lot of this, network blocking. But did you know you can also use your access points? Did you know you can also use your switches? You can also use your routers. You can extend this threat intelligence that we just talked about to that network infrastructure, and they can help you stop attacks. And they should help you stop attacks. The entire network needs to become threat aware in order for us to get a better handle on just the evolving, more sophisticated threats that we've seen. I know that most of you, the instances of really sophisticated threats have gone up immensely over the past 18 months because attackers love chaos. Anyone who is looking for an opportunity loves chaos. Chaos is opportunity for attackers. And the chaos that the pandemic brought in having to, completely evolve your network to accommodate for outdoor operations, to accommodate for increased capacity, to accommodate for all the things that helped us get through the last 18 months of is a really critical, very scary time. That is an opportunity for an attacker, because when things move quickly, human error occurs. And, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We're not, the Borg. We don't have, all-knowing visibility. We don't have all-knowing intelligence, which is why we have smart devices. But it's also why we have networks that can become threat aware. Networks that can understand this IP address has been verified as a command and control server. I'm not going to allow connections from this device. Why would I allow traffic from that verified command and control server? I'm going to block traffic from that IP address. A router can and should be able to do that. If an endpoint is absolutely compromised, an IoT device perhaps, you may not have an endpoint agent on it, but you should be able to use your switch to quarantine, to control what that that IoT device is able to access. You should be able to use your Wi-Fi access points to control access based on the context of that device and the risk that it introduces to your network. So if an endpoint agent, if an IoT device is, has a user on it that is doing some interesting things, maybe an anomalous behavior, maybe that IoT device itself is behaving abnormally, but you don't know for sure. Enforcement also includes controlling the security posture, the security policy that IoT device has to get through before that access can be allowed. So if you have an IoT device, you want to know that it is an IoT device. You want to know what kind of IoT device it is. You want to know, are there actual users who are using that device? Are they logged in? Is there one user? Are there multiple users? And what OS is the device running? Does that OS, is that 4 or 5 versions back? Is it up to date? Has it been patched? Are there known CVEs? What protocols is it using? What applications is it accessing? All of this is great intelligence, and it's going to help you and help that Wi-Fi access point, for example, control access. It's going to help It's going to help you understand when that IoT device needs to automatically go to a different VLAN. It needs to automatically have an increased, more strict security policy applied to it. Maybe that's MFA. Maybe that's adding a stricter IPS policy. Maybe that's adding a stricter anti-malware policy. Maybe the level of access that it has is severely limited until an investigation can occur. All of these are types of enforcement. They all rely on contextual intelligence, correlated intelligence, but that most of all, they rely on visibility, because you don't know unless you can see. And I want to talk a little bit about the data transaction itself. So, that data transaction, that session itself, one piece of intelligence and visibility that you should have is within the session, right? What direction is that session going? What applications is that endpoint device connecting to? Again, what protocols is it using? What do the sessions look like? And has that session been tampered with? This is, if you're familiar with Zero Trust, which all of you probably are, the networking piece, the network piece of Zero Trust is one of the most difficult to accomplish, because, and even Forrester says this themselves, no one really owns the internet, and that's true. But if you understand your sessions, if you have technology that helps you understand what's going on within that session and whether or not that session has been tampered with, and even better, if you can authenticate the session at every hop to be sure, you are going to have a much better risk posture. You're going to know more, you're going to see more, and you can limit your risk as a result. I think we always forget about the session. I know I did in the past. One of the things that actually opened my eyes was Juniper actually acquired a company called 128 Technology, and they have something called the Session Smart Router. And the reason they call it this is because they actually focus on sessions. They actually take a look at what's going on within the session. And I'm not talking about decryption and content policy. What I'm talking about is they look at metadata from the source and to the destination, and they compare it. So they really can authenticate those sessions at every hop. They can give you, a greater level of segmentation within the sessions themselves, so that you can control the directionality. You can control the session vector, which is really interesting, and from a security perspective, really helpful. They offer a level of allowing and blocking, deny by default is what they call it, that previously I don't think we've had, not just Juniper, but the industry. The technology that you have in your networks right now can and should help you understand when an attack is happening, what else is going on, has it moved laterally, and then help you block at every point of connection. And so, this, again, I realize that I'm keeping it pretty high level here, and there's a reason for that. Because, as you know, there are many more sessions today. And so what I'd love to invite you all to come join me and a couple of my colleagues in our challenge session at 2:30. Join myself, my colleague Mike Spandauer, and my other colleague Zach Forsyth to talk more about how to protect patient data on endpoints using the network, but also how to automate detection in the face of very evolving, sophisticated attacks. And that's nothing new. I swear, we've been saying attacks are more sophisticated, attacks are evolving, the threat landscape is evolving since the dawn of the internet. But that sophistication and that evolution requires automation. One of the things that, again, we all know very well, we all have been hearing about this since I started my career in cyber, is there's a shortage. There's a shortage of security professionals. There are over 1 million unfulfilled open recs that we just can't fill within cybersecurity. And that's a problem. But especially in the last couple of years, when, as we've been, having to be creative about how to fill that headcount, being creative about and open-minded about who we choose to fill those positions, looking at not just experience, but hiring for potential, hiring for someone's curiosity, hiring for, in those positions, someone who may not have a conventional cybersecurity background. Maybe they don't have an official degree. Maybe they don't have 10 years of experience yet, but they have a willingness to learn. They have an inherent curiosity. And, more and more these days, kids in elementary school are learning how to code, which is awesome. That is great for us. One of the things that has been very close to my heart, one of the initiatives that I've been involved with, that Juniper has been involved with, is something called the Diana Initiative. And actually, I'm going to make a plug here. The Diana Initiative Summit starts tomorrow. What the Diana Initiative does is they're all about breaking down barriers in InfoSec. If you have an interest in InfoSec, even if you have zero skills, the tools, the people, the mentors are there to help those people learn, help them get a job, help them get the skills to get into a career in InfoSec. And this is especially helpful because we're going to get more people with who can think creatively, because they don't have a traditional background. They can help fill those recs. They can help create an innovative protection plan for your network, for your endpoints, for protecting patient data, because they have a different perspective. And so I'm really excited about the summit tomorrow. Tickets are $5. Again, because we shouldn't have all these barriers, especially if the problem is that we don't have enough people to fill the open headcount that we have today. So if you or your teams, or anybody who even has an interest in InfoSec, skills, experience are not required. There are a lot of amazing talks from really experienced, awesome people who have made a name for themselves in InfoSec. People from red team, blue team, what we now call purple team, because you need a mix of both. Folks who are, have architected these innovative ways to secure their networks. They have sessions tomorrow. They've got boot camps. They've got a lock picking village. They've got capture the flag event. Again, no skills necessary. Tickets are $5. I will put a link in the chat for all of you. I highly encourage you to attend, or at least let your teams know that this is available to them. It's also a great opportunity for recruiting, just FYI. Okay, so that's an important piece of this as well. Getting new talent, getting a different perspective, thinking creatively about how to increase your visibility, how to correlate different pieces of intelligence to get that full context so that you can actually make a decision, and also how to automate the enforcement. Automation is super helpful when you've got too much to do and not enough people to do it, because automation can help with the tasks that really a machine should be doing, saving the human brain for the more strategic decisions, the more strategic problems, the harder things to solve. And Juniper is really great at automation. That's kind of what we're known for. In addition to our routing and switching, automation is kind of our jam. All right, so I've got some questions in the chat. I'm going to answer them. So the first one is, curious how Juniper has been dealing with patient data and sharing across multiple devices and platforms. So I think I understand this question, although I would love to get some clarification if I'm incorrect. Sharing patient data across multiple devices and platforms. It really all comes down to what that data is. What does it consist of? HIPAA? Is it very confidential patient data? What applications is it being shared to? Is it being sent somewhere it shouldn't go? What access those endpoints that are sharing that data have, and what the behavior of those endpoints has been? What has the behavior been for those endpoints? So have they been acting strangely? Has there been an indicator or multiple indicators of compromise on one endpoint? And in light of that, should that endpoint be able to share data with the other or receive data from the other? And what we've been doing, what Juniper has been doing, is we have been actually extending our security portfolio, our security services, to the rest of our networking infrastructure. That is the premise behind our connected security strategy. So we started with extending what we call SecIntel to our routing infrastructure. So our routers actually can stop volumetric DDoS, for example. They can block verified command and control traffic at the router, right? Doesn't even need to get to a firewall. We extended the SecIntel to our switching infrastructure as well, because we recognize, especially in the data center, we recognize that an endpoint agent is not always going to be on a server. It's not always going to be on an endpoint, especially an IoT device. And so what we can do is we can actually use the switch as an enforcement point. We can quarantine, we can block an endpoint at the switch port. We've been extending our advanced threat protection cloud, ATP cloud, which is kind of our threat intelligence hub. We've been extending that intelligence to our Mist Wi-Fi access points. And we've been working with a partner called Woot Cloud. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they specialize in IoT fingerprinting. So we work Mist, Woot Cloud, and the SRX and ATP Cloud all work together to provide context of what is this device, what data is it sending, should it be sending it, and we can automatically put that IoT device in a different VLAN. Automatically, if it's IoT, it should go in this other zone. It should be, it should have a stricter access level. It should have a stricter security policy. We need to check it for all the threats. And we don't mind necessarily, or we do mind that there is a little bit more latency, right? Those all are control points with the Juniper connected security portfolio, which is really the entire Juniper portfolio. And we work with different CASB vendors, for example, who have inherent DLP to understand, within cloud applications, what data is going where. Should it be data that can be sent from one application to another application? We understand that you're not going to have only Juniper in your networks, and you really shouldn't. I know, I think our CPO might kill me for saying this, but really, you're going to have a ton of different vendors in your network, and you should, because no one vendor is best of breed. But what we've been doing, and this has been Juniper's strategy from the start, is creating open standards, working with other vendors inherently, and not just on integrations, but interoperability. We bake that into the products because we know that that's the reality. As much as any one vendor would like for you to have just their gear and only their gear for your security needs or for your networking needs or what have you, that's just not going to happen. And so our Juniper's entire portfolio is built to interoperate and integrate very easily. And that's actually where a lot of the automation happens. We have a lot of really amazing scripts that you can, our users, our engineering teams, our field have been able to create very easily because Junos Our operating system is pretty open, pretty extensible. And by the way, if you are a Juniper customer at all, you can download those scripts and implement them from our Juniper GitHub account, by the way. But that's how we're dealing with patient data and sharing, right? We're not just using our own security services. We are extending those to the rest of the network infrastructure, and we're working with best of breed partners in an open, extensible way so that makes it easy for you guys. I don't know about you, but I don't want to spend my entire day trying to perfect an integration from one product to the next. That sucks. You want it to just work. And so that's what we've been focusing on doing and helping you guys integrate, helping different product types and between different vendors, even our competitors, interoperate. All right, another question. What are some of the challenges with training doctors and nurses on safe and secure connectivity? With anyone who's not really involved in IT, I would extend it to all IT, not just security. It's a challenge, right? You have to speak their language. It's the same challenges that are involved in making sure your parents, your siblings, the people that you love and care about, stay as safe as possible. I actually, you guys are probably like the go-to IT people for your families. I am. Whenever, it doesn't matter the problem. It can be security related or not. You know, my dad calls me and says, "Hey, Kate, I need your help. I need your help. I don't know why my computer's slow. Can you help me out?" Right? And so we have to be able to speak layman language, right? First, in making sure that doctors and nurses, anyone really, understands the risk here. What is at stake, right? And it's not just about patient data, and privacy, confidentiality. It's not just about that. It's also about, impacting care. It's about, if something gets in and it wants to bring down devices that help those doctors and nurses care for their patients, keep their patients alive, that's bad. But they can do something to help stop it. But it's not all on them, right? The layer 8 problem, the user problem, absolutely is a challenge. We're still dealing with that, and we will be for a very long time. There is a lot of learning and training that has to happen, but technology can help that. Technology can help, can help along that front. It's a mix of people, of processes, making sure you have the right processes in place, making sure you have technology that actually helps those people make good cyber common sense, what we think of cyber common sense decisions. But all those three things have to come together. But I think it really comes down to communication. And, I know we all kind of feel like we're shouting into the void or banging our heads against a wall, trying to get people to understand just how serious all of this can be and is today. But with anything, right, we need to speak their language. We need to stop speaking tech for a second and really understand, what do those doctors, what do those nurses really care about, right? What can you say that's going to make it to the top of their brain priority list, and using their language. The same with anybody. I mean, even when you're talking to executive stakeholders, right, who are not in the weeds, who are not in the SOC, who are not in the firewall or configuring routers every day. They're not going to be speaking the language that you understand. So you need to speak the language that they understand. And I know that's a lot to put on your shoulders, but we're humans. And if we all communicated better, there would be a lot fewer problems. Cyber common sense training for cyber training for the layperson falls into that category as well. All right. Well, I really appreciate the time this morning. And again, please join me and Zach and Mike at 2:30 to talk in more depth about automating detection, about how to use the network, to better use the network to see and get that intelligence and to automate enforcement, to use the rest of the network for enforcement. I really appreciate it. I wish you all good health. Hopefully, I think my kids are on the mend, thank goodness, and hopefully your families are staying healthy. And I will see you in a few hours. Thank you guys.